A lot of people will lose their jobs. They're already losing them.
It'll be ordering taxis for you and replying to your best friend's messages.
And it'll ride it 10 times faster than you. That's a fact.
What would be the plan B?
Many managers, they're constantly missing deadlines, forgetting to do things.
Some things take off and some don't.
Right now, what's most concerning, is where there's a lot of manual work.
Making a wheel, right? Working with a pickaxe.
Most people out there are just doing God knows what.
Most people hear about AI from the ones who are selling it. Azamat Galimzhanov is a man who builds it, an engineer with vast experience, from biometrics to AI agents, all about Azamat AI. Today, an honest conversation about what AI specifically can and can't do, and what an agent really is. Azamat, welcome.
Good day. Thanks for having me. Always happy to chat.
Now, in our world, in the modern 2026, if you can call it that, maybe you have a different opinion on this, Azamat. AI, as artificial intelligence, has very much entered our lives of the average person, right? So we see that Gemini is attacking Android, attacking iPhone. More and more subscription systems, more and more new devices are connecting, also cloud, also GPT, and newer models appearing on the markets. They're all openly coming and, let's say, enslaving humanity, while humanity openly uses them. So the question arises, for a person who hears about AI every day, but honestly doesn't understand why they need to actually use all this and what's behind it. How would you explain what's really happening right now with this boundary of humanity?
Actually, there are several points here that can be unpacked. First, you say it's being actively integrated into human life, but I want to say that it's probably not quite like that yet. Most people, they don't use AI at all. So I probably even want to say an anti-hype thing. Yeah, it's normal. You're not falling behind. The real integration is still ahead, but there's probably no escaping it.
Well, let's compare, say, the last 2 or 3 years. What made AI so noticeable and accessible?
In English, they say that AI has gained agency. Roughly speaking, this can be translated into Russian as autonomy. There's been a transition from a thing that just knows how to answer questions or chat with you to it performing tasks outside of its shell, outside of that chat. A very simple example. Before, you could tell it, write me a contract on such and such a topic, and it would give you the text of that contract. Then you'd copy that text, open up Word, and paste it in there. Now you can just say, write me a contract, and it'll create a ready-to-go Word file. What's more, you can say, here's the path to my Word file, like a template, go and change the bank details in it to this company. Or even a more advanced example, go to my email or open WhatsApp, Telegram. We have this chat history there with this person. You can even tell it, go and ask him for the bank details. He'll send them to you. Put that in the template, see if anything else is needed, and are the bank details he sent in the right format? If something's missing, ask for more, and it can basically do all of that for you. Of course, right now, well, it doesn't work in one click. It needs a bit of setup and so on, but we're slowly, getting there.
Suppose you've automated it to the point where it'll order a taxi for you and reply to your best friend's messages and just like that, swap out bank details. Well, anyway, suppose you have an assistant like that. Doesn't that scare you? Because you're someone who understands how it works. Yeah. So I think our viewers would be interested in an opinion on this from the perspective of someone who knows the inside story. How scary is it, or is it not?
Well, first of all, I'm totally against things like AI replying to a friend. I mean, I was even against it in principle, when a Telegram reminder pops up that it's a friend's birthday, right? I try to remember it myself. I don't use services like that. Automating personal relationships, I'm against that. I don't like that approach. Using it, say, for, I'm against automation specifically, but using it to create something. I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know, AI hate from artists, you know? They hate on AI, art and stuff. They say that it's not real art. Well, that's debatable, yeah. Some people are really offended that, like, materials were stolen. I also think that's just nonsense. But for example, for me, painting a portrait of my wife, right? And presenting it in a way like, I don't know, remember our first date was at a place that doesn't exist anymore? Right, but like, I'll try to paint it there. I think that's totally fine. But automating a reply to a message, like she writes, I love you, and you have a bot automatically replying, I don't think you should do that. Moving on from that to whether it's scary. I wouldn't say it's exactly scary, but it really makes you think about the future in terms of a lot of people will lose their jobs. They already are. I myself, my company, were involved in people losing their jobs. We were doing like some part of an automation, and then we found out that the sales department had significantly cut their staff. I was like, oh, this is directly related to what we were doing at this company. Actually, there is this concept called effective accelerationism. I am probably part of that movement. I am more of a supporter of the idea that, like, we have to use these technologies. There is no escaping it. I think that most of the AI resistance that exists, it is actually very well developed in the West. In the West, like when I read English language content, there is way more hate towards AI than in Russian language content. But it is starting to seep into Russian now too. I think they are Luddites, that they are just straight up denying the obvious benefits. But at the same time, there are so many questions about how to integrate it all properly, and the answers, well, at least I do not have them. I do not know. I am trying to study this topic. Many people do not. I mean, there is this idea of universal basic income where everyone gets some kind of salary. But how to implement that is unclear. Like, looking at how our, I don't know, pension system works, it already has a ton of flaws. And with AI, by the way, I can really feel how everything is speeding up. Development cycles for like anything at all, they are shrinking significantly. So you just get tasks done much faster. The progress that has happened in AI over the last 2 years would be unthinkable in any other industry without AI. Right now, AI is concentrated, well, it depends on how you look at it. Oh, it is a very interesting topic. The top LLMs are all being developed in the States, by a small number of companies, actually. And the lead over competitors is quite significant. It is significant. Well, let us say in terms of time, there is definitely at least a 6-month lead. But that is dangerous, right? Given so much power to such a small number of companies. What kind of counterweight can be put against this? It is, well, the development of open source. China's betting big on that. Although there is one thing here that a lot of people do not know. The whole concept of open source code, you can download it and use it yourself and modify it. That is an important part. When people talk about open source AI, they usually mean open weights. Not open source code, but open weights. So, yes, you can download the model, you can use it on your own, but you practically cannot modify it for your needs. For a model to be truly open source, the training code and all the data it was trained on must be provided. And that is a touchy subject for companies because often, like, the data they train on clearly was not obtained through, let us say, super official channels, right? I mean, the Chinese are clearly training their models by distilling American ones. So they're gathering data sets, and the Americans are actively banning them for it. So, well, they talk to ChatGPT a lot. To put it very simply, they talk to ChatGPT a lot. And they have this, like, I sent this prompt, I got that answer, and you can train on that data and get something similar to ChatGPT.
Speaking of a rather painful problem for humanity, the issue of job loss, right? Everyone's afraid of it. First of all, how large of a percentage of loss could there be, right? How much should we be afraid of this? I think those listening to us might be asking themselves, how do you sleep at night knowing that quite a few people have lost their jobs or at least temporarily, right? Lost the opportunity to work in a specific role because that process has been fully automated through AI.
No, people usually ask me something else. What kind of work can it actually do? I usually answer, it can do almost any kind of office work. That might sound a bit scary, right? On the other hand, I've always had this argument. Most people are doing God knows what. In general, in corporate, well, like in corporations, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and some probably millions of people work there, and most of them are doing God knows what. The work of an individual person is so useless. They were already being laid off anyway. Look, here's an example too, right? Twitter. When Elon Musk came in, he fired a huge number of people there. And like the site basically works without him. Yes, people said it was super unethical, this and that. To some extent, I also agree that it was. The way he did it, it wasn't super ethical. But the fact remains that basically the business didn't die. Well, although since it became a private company again, we don't know all the numbers. Used to be a public company, you could say. Now, it's not clear at all. Maybe they're really operating at a huge loss, but at least the company didn't die. And overall, I don't know. Sometimes I had this impression, so many vague positions, entire departments where it's unclear what they do, and then their work isn't used at all. And if you were to remove all that, I think it would actually be a good thing. It's bad, of course, yes, that people are losing their jobs. Now, specifically regarding the people we've automated. So, I was talking here about vague office work, where someone's just messing around with papers, gathering things. They just take it from one place and move it to another. We've automated similar things in sales, essentially. At the same time, we didn't automate the work of one specific person. We, for example, by the way, right now, AI can't make calls properly, can't talk normally. Therefore, even on the top, well, like it speaks English best of all, right? But even in English, it's pretty quickly obvious that it's AI. Humans just don't talk like that. The way it is, it goes silent when it's listening to someone, but people, they can always interrupt a bit, and so on. And those micro delays, basically, you can feel them. When people feel that, they get negative right away. They stop talking. You can't fulfill the task of replacing a phone operator, but you can help people during the call. That is, we pulled up relevant data during the call from the database. And we automated the work there, part of the work of various analysts. And then overall, like one operator of ours became much more efficient. The head of sales assigns lists of who needs to be called. We automated that work, and overall, because of that, what happened in this specific company? The sales department, they processed a single call much faster, and they knew much better who to call, who to answer. Because they became so efficient, so many people weren't needed anymore. That's what happened. But yeah, when I found out that people were laid off there, it shocked me. Well, not exactly shocked, but I was like, oh, there was a serious, basically, effect from my work on someone and someone else. Something was always happening, people were losing jobs, but overall, we somehow adapt. Actually, what's now, it's happening to programmers too, because programming has become, well, super easy now. It does half the work for you. But you have to realize that in the end, fewer programmers will probably be needed. Well, there's also this effect here. I forgot what it's called. The fact that when some new technology appears that automates something, the result is usually that more such employees are needed, because it turns out that a ton of work that programmers could do simply wasn't being done because it wasn't considered important enough, that it took a lot of time, and so on and so forth. This is happening to me too. I'm running my own company now. All my people are programmers. We're all techies. But for instance, here's an example. I'd give an assignment. From time to time, we needed to set up a new VPN server. I'd say, set one up for me in Europe, set one up in the States, set one up in Hong Kong. Because the old one went down for some reason. It got banned. I'd give that job to a programmer. He could do it in like half an hour. But now I give that task to AI and it handles it perfectly. And then here's another small thing. I have hundreds of gigabytes of recorded call logs, demo recordings. And I have hundreds of gigabytes because I have a huge monitor and I record in high quality. I always knew, like, man, I need to compress this into a lower quality. I could have written a script, but I was always too lazy. But here, I just gave the task to the AI and it did it for me. It went to work for like, I don't know, 10 hours, but I just set it for an hour and that's it. I've basically freed up hundreds of gigabytes on my disk. Anyway, these things you kept putting off, you could have done them, but you were lazy. Now you can just hand them over to the AI. And there are so many things like that. This applies to programming as well, right? I mean, I came from backend, full stack, then CTO, and so on. But since I came from backend, I was like generally always too lazy to deal with interfaces, you know? And like adding little features to websites was always something I was too lazy to do. So, okay, I'll tell you. My company's website was also done entirely by me personally all of a sudden. I mean, before I would have just given it to programmers, but here I decided, okay, let me do it myself. And then how much can you actually soup up a basic landing page? You'd think it's just a landing page, but no. The CDN is set up. Basically, it's spread across a bunch of servers around the globe, so it opens fast. It's actually a pretty standard thing. People do it for landing pages, but not everyone. Usually, they just take some server, deploy it there, and that's it. If it's located in the States, it'll take a long time to open from Kazakhstan. But okay, CDN. Basic. Check. All right, next is more advanced. You can write an edge function in that CDN to determine which country the request is coming from. Depending on that, you can preemptively change the language the site is displayed in. That's also a cool feature. It's convenient, right? When Americans visit and see the site in English right away, people from Kazakhstan visit and see the site in Russian.
As we know, you managed to work even with Call of Duty in Dublin. Then you built biometrics, right? And now AI agents. How does this path even come together? Was it a plan or just a coincidence? Everyone thinks that people who work in, well, programming have everything structured in their heads, right? Like they see the world completely differently. Programs are a clear sequence of formulas. Yeah, like when we don't write it this way, but exactly like that. Well, that's really how it is, right? Everything is structured for you. So what about this? About your path? Is it structured or not structured?
Not structured at all. Maybe some programmers do structure things, but not in my case. Yeah, I have. Let's say a very logical way of thinking, but it's more day to day. I mean, well, I have some daily plans, but like planning how a career develops, from the moment I finished uni until now, there was absolutely none of that. There were very, very many quite accidental things. In uni, there was this one subject. Well, like we were choosing subjects. I chose one subject where they taught the Python language. Because of that, I later got a job at Demonware, which is part of Activision Blizzard, where we built the backend and matchmaking for Call of Duty. So that was already a bit of a coincidence, right? And then a few more coincidences happened. I applied to several companies. I applied to Microsoft and I applied to Google. Microsoft rejected me. Google accepted me, but they took like a month to get back to me. During that month, I had already managed to get a job at another company, Demonware. Well, like what if Google had replied right away and I'd gone to work there, doing who knows what? So, and then I returned to Kazakhstan under the terms of the Balashok program. Here, I went to work at Santa Fe, which Kaspi later bought out and turned into Kaspi Travel. Well, like I started working there in 2013. I worked as a team lead for 6 months, then I left. I was offered to do some startups, first an American, then my classmate, then another friend. Anyway, I was working on several startups at the same time. They all died out. More or less. Well, we did one with a classmate in Moscow. I worked for a year, sold my share, and left. Then, for about a year, I was just chilling and traveling. And then, well, a friend and I would participate in hackathons from time to time. And anyway, we went to participate in some hackathon. At hackathons, there's like freestyle where you do whatever and present it, and then there are themed ones. This was one of those themed ones. I think it was Tech Garden, and they had something about biometrics. Anyway, we won first place there, but it was actually funny because two biometric companies were born at that hackathon. Basically, we had to make a facial recognition solution, but I think they gave us like 20 faces to train on. There were guys from a company that would later become Verigrand, and there were like 6 of them, a big team, while there were only 2 of us. And they were the serious ones. Then there was us. Not that we were super serious, but we were like already battle hardened from the industry. So anyway, those guys are the Verigram company, and they were building a spaceship, like training from scratch. I think they were trying to solve it using neural networks. We just took a pre-trained model that exists online with ready-made weights, but we built a layer on top of it because we understood the task. Like we clarified, it's only going to be these 20 people that we're testing on, and we trained a classifier on top of that specifically for those 20 faces. So they had a generic solution that could compare any 2 faces. Well, ours was like any face against one of those 20. And like we showed 100% accuracy at that hackathon. We won, well, a little bit of money, but anyway, after that hackathon, I was noticed by Alabec.
Uh-huh.
And that's how Biometric was born. It was pretty random, just from the results of a hackathon. Someone there heard something or other.
And at what point did AI agents come in? I mean, it wasn't just by chance, right? You probably wanted to do this seriously, or no?
Something related to AI. Actually, the technical direction was machine learning. Yeah, machine learning. I started liking it back in 2012 during my final years of university. Plus, online back then, I liked it so much that I took a couple of online courses, ML class by Andrew Nang and an AI class. Well, basically, Stanford made these free courses that later evolved into the Coursera platform. I was already interested in it back then. The concept of AI at that time, it was like, you're either a research scientist or you're some kind of clown. Like, serious people didn't talk like that. Serious people always said machine learning. 10 years later, I'm in biometrics. We're really doing machine learning. We have our own team. We're like in the top world rankings for biometrics, showing good results with a small team. And at the same time, first GPT-3 is released, and then GPT 3.5 Roo from Scabber. There's a bit of an interesting story there. First there was GPT-1, just let's say a proof of concept from OpenAI. Then there was GPT-2. It was open source, so you could get it, I think, with the training code. Then they released GPT-3. And there was this story that's a bit funny to hear now. When GPT-3 came out, they were like, this is super dangerous. We can't like share this, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's a secret. So only through our API, we're not giving out the weights. So basically, it was kind of kept under wraps. Spur, they read, how OpenAI supposedly upgraded from GPT-2 to GPT-3, well, like just the paper without the code. They took the open source code for GPT-2 and upgraded it to GPT-3 on the same principles. Plus, they did it in Russian, because those were only in English. And I was subscribed to like various Telegram channels, and I got, well, really interested at that point. I started playing around with them. I was like, oh, look, there's something cool here. I started doing a few projects on my own. I had ideas back then, like making an astrologer. And I was making them on GPT 3.5 Roo, the one from Spur. And it was hard. It was like you had to do fine tuning, collect your own data sets, parse, basically train it, spend a lot of money on it. I was making calls, man, with the creators, with the people who worked at Scribber on this model. Private consultations, like $200 an hour, just to figure it out. And we threw something together, and then ChatGPT comes out. And it can do these astrological forecasts and social media posts better than what we, as serious engineers, spent 6 months trying to do. I was like, man, this is something serious was happening. And at that moment, I was also a bit tired of startups. Basically, the whole venture thing, like investors pressuring me, I was over it. So I decided to leave and get serious about AI. So that was the path.
Artificial intelligence has come up many times in our conversation today. In the simplest terms possible, how would you explain what an AI agent is and how it differs from the chatbots everyone's already seen?
The difference with an AI agent versus a chatbot is that it can act outside of just a chat window. It can do things on your operating system, on your computer, on your phone, in the cloud, interact with files, create new ones, edit old ones, and you can give it fairly long sequences of actions in just plain human language, and it'll more or less figure out what needs to be done and how to do it.
And a chatbot?
A chatbot just replies in the chat.
So basically, it doesn't really have a clear algorithm for multitasking or complex branching actions. It's just linear. Answer me. Give me this.
No, actually,
Now there's something there.
there is. Yeah. I'll try to explain it a bit technically. The model itself, like they're talking about GPT-5, 5.5 now. It's just the brains. It's still a text generator, but you can think of a text generator as the brains. Now it's been given tools. It has a file search tool, it has a connect to email tool, a connect to Telegram tool, right? And now this agent, it can, so to speak, reason. It reasons through text, it just knows how to write text, but it's like, okay, you tell it, go to my email, find all the messages from investors, figure out which one is the best, and schedule a meeting with them tomorrow at 12. Put it on my calendar. That's a very rough example, but here you see this part, figure out which one is the best. And then it starts reasoning. It starts writing text to itself. Okay, the user gave me a task to go to email, this and that, blah, blah, blah. First, I'll use the email tool. Within the email tool, I'll use the search tool. Right. Okay, I need to decide which keywords to search for. Probably these, and these. It does the search. It gets a list of what it found. Then it reasons again. Is this an exhaustive list, or do I need more words? Maybe it got 0 results, right? Like, it searched, you told it in Russian, it went and searched the email in Russian, but your email's all in English. And it's like, okay, I have 0 results. I should probably check, like, I looked at the emails, turns out they're all in English, so I need to write in English and send another request. And so this basically, it now has an internal loop where it works by calling external tools. That's basically how an agent differs.
So what does an agent look like in real life? In a real company, I mean. What's a practical example, maybe? How does it actually work?
An agent that helps out with HR? People apply for jobs on Headhunter. This agent messages them on WhatsApp right away, asking some mandatory follow-up questions. The person replies, and we look to see if maybe we have an even better job for them. Then we ask basically like where they live, and based on that location, what else is physically located nearby. And there's also a rule like based on priorities. Maybe we have a more urgent opening in a location that's not as close, so we'll offer that one first. And then there's actually a bit of a, let's say, viral effect. It suggests like, hey, if you want, like, invite your friends or acquaintances to join us too. So there's an example like that.
Speaking of the marketing side of AI, everyone often says that if it weren't for marketing, AI agents and chatbots would be way less popular. And it's all just a bloated hype bubble that's been swirling since the pandemic, when everyone went remote. And that's exactly what brought everything to this point. So my question is, since you see the AI promise from both the inside and the outside, what's actually working now, and what does AI already do well today?
Right now, marketing is indeed very heavily, let's say, inflated. And they promise a lot of things that probably fall short. But initially, when ChatGPT came out, ChatGPT became the fastest growing app in the world to reach its first million and first 100 million users, as far as I remember. Basically, nothing in the world had ever grown that fast, and there was almost no marketing involved. They had the GPT 3.5 model, and it was just sitting there on their website. But how was it sitting there? Like you couldn't download it, but you could interact with it. It wasn't in a chat mode, it was in a dialogue completion mode. I mean, all these LLM models, they basically work as text completers. And you had to write, like, the best pasta recipe in the world is, and it would basically complete the text for you. That was the format you had to use. Anyway, it was just sitting there like that, and nobody was interested in it. Nobody was using it at all. And then they built a chat interface around it, and that's when it just exploded. You could say that, maybe. Like the chat interface was a marketing move. I don't know. Like there was no investment, there wasn't any advertising. Use ChatGPT today, and so on. Like it wasn't being actively pushed. And for people, it blew their mind. Well, like for me too, yeah. Every day they say that in 6 months, programmers won't be needed.
So considering that, I'll just add a bit here. During the pandemic, plus the pandemic, after the pandemic, there was a huge influx of people saying, I want to learn programming. That's cool. I'm working. Good startup there. Well, now there's Higgs Field. Young specialists are looking at them there. Before that, it was GPT, Facebook, we all know these companies. And now what's happening is that in the job market, nobody needs them. Not because they aren't needed, but because juniors aren't needed.
Yep.
It's been a while because if you think about it, it's now 2026. When was 2019? Quite a while ago.
Yep.
Quite a while ago, yeah. And it turns out that in that time, they've already grown into seniors, grown into full stacks. Those people who were studying then, and really, people are more interested in some senior, some middle, a strong middle, almost a senior, than hiring a junior. And that's exactly what the conversation is about. That, how much is this?
Middles were always more interesting to companies. Juniors were almost always nearly useless. You always made a bet. I'll take him now, I'll teach him, and in 6 months, he'll be more useful, and I'll pay him less than if I take a middle, and he'll develop some loyalty. Something like that. The bet was always on that. At least, well, for me too, probably. Yeah, as an owner. I was always a co-founder, and we made some hiring decisions. But when something serious needed to be done, we understood. You always take a senior if possible, within your budget.
Exactly. You can answer the question, what should these juniors do?
Man.
There are millions of them all over the world.
It's really, well, there are 2 points here. First, I really empathize. I really see it. Juniors are trying to come. When I realize it's a junior skill-wise, I'm like, man, I don't have time to deal with this right now. Well, maybe for me, my company profile is just different now too. Yeah, without venture investment, there's just no money to throw around like that. On one hand, I really empathize, and to some extent, but on the other hand, I understand. If I were a junior, yeah, or what advice do I give juniors? They need to devour AI because they have that hunger, that freshness, yeah. It's like they even pick up these topics faster. Well, I've seen some who get into it very quickly. And I've seen another example. I've seen seniors who are like, I hate AI, I'll never use it, blah, 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 the code is crap. A junior can, I don't know, in 6 months overtake such a senior. A company, I see how it could happen that they'd kick such a senior for such a junior, because he just, yeah, maybe the code isn't the highest quality, but he gets the job done. It's like good enough.
So it turns out that logically, what should they do? Absorb all the opportunities, the gifts of civilization now. Use those same agents, study and use them to code, learn some tricks, and in general get used to using them to quickly automate or do some complex things with its help, right? So it turns out he's not doing it personally, right, but with its help, but he's doing it and he's completing the task. Rather than going and trying to get in somewhere, even just as an intern, right?
100%. You have to study everything. I'm saying that juniors have the advantage of hunger, having free time, right? I mean, seniors, they all have families already, but you're young, you move fast, you can afford to sit there all night doing something. Using AI is a must. You can produce results much faster with it. Complete tasks with AI? I'm absolutely for that. At the same time, you need to separate studying a topic from performing tasks. So when you're just learning something, you can't fully rely on AI to do it for you. It can give you hints, but you have to learn the material yourself, like how to use a database and so on. Not just that it will do it for you. When it comes to a project, okay, let it do it for you. Like if you have tight deadlines and so on. But if you need to study this topic so that later you can make some decisions, understand how high quality the result you got is, you need to understand the topic. So I'm saying I use AI super actively myself and my team, but we know what we want to build. We know what words to write to get that kind of result. I'm here we need to apply this thing to make it good. But I know that in such a situation this thing is applicable, I just won't go and write it by hand. Or later I'll read the result. I'm like, well done, or this is poorly done. Redo it. And to get these skills, you can't rely only on AI, right? You have to go through something, write something by hand to learn it. But when you deliver a result, like, hey, I will write it 10 times faster than you, that's a fact. And also, it'll probably do it beautifully there.
What's plan B? I mean, let's say you've studied, you've become a junior, you can't find a company for an internship to grow, even for free. Yeah, what would be plan B? What would you do? Well, you'd hardly change your location, for example. I understand if you're front end, maybe you could switch to design, right? Just be a designer and simultaneously move forward somehow, study code somehow and try to develop in this area. And if you're, a junior, a general junior, so to speak, who does both.
Well, I've gone all in on self-education. I've been teaching myself hard skills in all sorts of different areas using artificial intelligence. It's not just programming. I'd study marketing too. Basically, everything I don't understand. For clients, we'll get to how to get clients in a bit. I do everything through neural networks. I'd build a marketing plan using AI and I'd analyze my network. Okay, who do I know and what can I achieve through them? Then local brands that, I'm interested in working with. I'd build a site for someone, then think about how their business works, what can be optimized, and what I can offer. But that's actually pretty tough. Companies come to me too, saying, we want to implement AI. That kind of request annoys me, but it's realistic. It happens all the time, so you have to deal with it. It annoys me because you can't implement AI without specifics. And I have to sit there and pull it out of them. How does everything work and what can I offer you? It's very hard to, offer something abstract or a one-size-fits-all solution. But that's just the job. And here, if I were a junior, I'd probably also, the difference is between people coming to me versus me going out and trying to offer this to everyone. You have to have a real offer. If you just vaguely say, I'll implement AI for you, no one's going to listen to you. But if you say, I'll come in and automate part of your marketing, I'll generate videos for you using AI and automatically set up targeting. I'll handle all your social media. As an example, right? Well, you can make an offer like that and it'll generally work. Don't limit yourself geographically to just your own country. Go global. Do it all over the world. It's not a problem. Learn the language. Learn English or Chinese if you can.
How do you tell a real AI developer from someone who just talks a big game about AI?
Well, first you need to understand why you're talking to this person. Do you have a specific project for them? If you have a specific project, try to figure out what their experience is in that general field. Do they understand? It's one thing to know AI, but another to understand the specific domain. Let's say you have a marketing project. He might know AI well, but does he understand marketing? At least the basics. Or if you have an automation project, say for accounting or finance, does he understand that stuff? If he doesn't, it's going to be tough. And if he does, maybe he's already done AI projects in those fields. Let him show you what he's done. Get specifics too. I'm always for specifics and minimal abstraction. If someone is constantly speaking only in abstractions, that's a red flag for me.
How much time do you need? Or how long does it usually take for you to gauge the level of a specialist or developer like that?
That's going to be tough. If it's some kind of group call, this happens, a group call like where we're discussing some project with a company and they say, here are our people or some independent outside expert doing an evaluation, blah, blah, blah. It's not an interview where you're asking him specific questions. Well, maybe at most you'll ask, what projects have you worked on? And he's like, oh, we built this and that, a whole spaceship. Okay. But then, like, you sit down to actually work, and it often turns out, well, like, he doesn't know a thing. Like, you won't ask him super technical, detailed questions during a general call.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying only in a one-on-one call, you can figure it out in a couple of hours, and even then, not always. It's actually very, very hard to tell how much a person really knows.
And what about what's going around the internet as a meme, so to speak, where programmers from different countries, or maybe even the same country, sit down and he takes soap to blur the camera, tapes a phone to it, and then AI reads what the interviewer is saying, right? And gives him answers in his professional field. And this person sits in front of the screen and says, yes, indeed, that's right. But then they fail during the test assignment because if the other person sees that they're reading, I'll even say, honestly, personally, that I not long ago participated in one such interview, and the person was reading and didn't even really hide it with their eyes. I mean, it was obvious the person was reading. So what's your take on this kind of Easter egg? Will it help them, so to speak?
I haven't personally encountered that. I've seen the videos. There are actually a bunch of programs that do this in different ways. Not just taping a phone, they create an overlay on your screen in other ways. Well, I'm more familiar with, the tech industry. With and big tech, their hiring process is basically its own separate game. There, you have their technical task. Part of the interview is these puzzle-like problems that you never actually encounter in real life. But you have to spend several months, half a year, preparing just to solve these programming tricks of theirs. You really never use it afterward, except for, passing the interview.
Is it like code or what?
It's like code, yeah. Well, you have to, calculate some kind of optimal route.
Ah, I see. Problems, actual problems.
Little problems, yeah. It's competitive programming, essentially. I did it in school, literally the same kind of problems. Some are at the level of international competition sometimes. And I'm absolutely not against people getting through these things using these assistants. Because, it really basically has nothing to do with our work later on.
And does solving these problems actually help? So let's say you go to an interview like that. You solve all the problems, and they say, okay, you're hired. Or does that not guarantee anything at all?
No, it's a multi-stage process.
Yeah.
First, you just submit a resume, I guess. They probably scan it first with some automatic scanner just to see if you're a rough fit. Then it goes to some HR people and they do their thing. Then you get to the part where you have to solve those coding problems. After that, you move on to the live interviews. The problems in the live interviews could be like those little tasks, but they can also be much more practical. Plus, there might be a system design part where you design a system, meaning you talk about abstract things like, here's our database, and they ask about different database types. Then they start throwing complications at you. They'll say, suddenly we have 1 million users. How will you handle that? If things start lagging, the interviewer's an experienced engineer who's already working there, so they'll throw real-world scenarios at you, and you have to answer. Now, system design is a solid topic. It's actually very similar to what you'll be doing on the job. But those leak code problems, they're total nonsense.
Ah, well, why would a company do that?
There's an insane flow of candidates, and they need to weed out the weak ones. And in principle, solving leak code can be a kind of proxy for assessing a programmer's competence because you do need some skills there. But you're forcing people to train in the wrong direction a bit.
It's basically like some kind of school exam.
Yes, yeah.
Study.
You really have to prepare. It's just like studying for the UNT. You don't even need it afterward. I mean, you might be good at math, but the UNT is just, you get it.
I mean, where would an A in geography come in handy, so to speak?
If you're going to be a geographer, well,
Only then.
even then, an A in geography on the UNT, or a 25 or 30, whatever the score is now, it doesn't really show how well you actually know geography. Especially in a professional sense, it just shows how well you prepared for the specific questions they ask on the UNT. Those can be quite different from what you'll actually face on the job.
So that raises the question, why the...
Well, the UNT was also introduced for standardization. They needed to standardize the process. It's the same for these companies. You can understand them, but now they need to adapt to the AI field. Like maybe conduct more system design interviews, but through AI and so on.
Why do some AI projects take off while others don't? Why do some get millions or billions of users and huge revenues while others don't? Some are unicorns and others are, let's say, buffaloes.
That's not really a question about AI. It's a question of just business, competition, the vision of individual founders, marketing decisions, fundraising strategies, and so on and so forth. There's so many factors.
It's not at all related to the product itself, which...
Well, it can be the product. No, it can. There are some frankly weak products. Well, like people just made junk. They bet on the wrong thing. Higgsfield acted very smartly in this. Before they became Higgsfield, before they even had that name, for a year, if not two, I talked with Yerjan. We talked quite a bit. And he told me about his various experiments, how many pivots they had made. I asked him, by the way, like, how do you even choose ideas for a pivot? He told me, like, who knows, random. I don't know, maybe he just brushed me off, because apparently it wasn't just random, because they, in the end, chose very smartly, very precisely. To hit it with that idea, so many factors had to come together for it all to take off successfully. They had an idea, literally. We met back in February 2025 at Digital Bridge Almaty, and they were still making... Hera was the name of their platform for generating short series, but back then the generation technology was still insufficient. Now you can do it, and they are doing it, in fact, on top of their Higgs field. Yes, but at that time it didn't work. On the other hand, when Yerjan was just starting this company, he invited me and he said, we're going to make there's this tool LangChain. We're going to make an alternative to LangChain and it'll be better. Like 2 months later, he tells me we're going to train some kind of prototype LLM, our own LLMs, and it's better than GPT-4 there by some single metric. It shows that we're like LLM. I was like, holy cow, they're going to make LLMs. It seemed like suicide to me. In fact, I was, right, in a way, because they dropped that idea. They also track some of their own metrics. They talk there with their co-founder Mashrabov. They talk with investors, like get some feedback, and very smartly moved on to something else. They made an open source platform for distributed model training, which they used to train themselves. They actually made their own video model. Like Sora came out, and a couple of months after the first Sora came out, they made their own version and bragged that on a very small computer, they had something like 512 video cards versus, I don't know, tens of thousands at OpenAI. But they trained their own video model. Then, when they launched Higgsfield, the first version, they also had their own video model, which apparently was built like on the same architecture as the open source ones, because they have their own data sets there. They had they generated in a different size and a different resolution, but very similar anyway to open source Chinese models in some ways. But they trained it. They have LoRa, that is. They specially fine-tuned camera movements anyway, and all sorts of pans and cool little effects. And those little effects clicked with people. And then they started pushing all that in marketing through Twitter and built an audience. Built such a critical mass of an audience that people came to them, and they themselves could offer other model developers to like test their solutions on a large audience that only Higgsfield has. Higgsfield hasn't launched any of its own models truly into production for a very long time, I think. Like, there isn't a real Higgsfield model. They have this old one, Director of Photography. They call it DOP. They surely have a bunch of internal, like, prompt optimizers, something else. You have a bunch of settings like this and that, whatever, that like do camera angles and so on. But these are all add-ons to other people's stuff. And they have their own big product, but all of that is currently geared only toward building an audience. And even that whole thing with the Cannes Film Festival, you know what the deal was there? Like, they weren't actually at the Cannes Film Festival. They were just in Cannes showing their film alongside the festival. A completely different audience. But they generated a ton of hype. They're very good at generating hype.
Well, so marketing is key.
It's incredibly key. They figured it out. They have distribution, basically, not just marketing. They're like number one in distribution and user count and so on in the video generation field. If we're talking about like why some of them die off, there were a bunch of Chinese startups that were training their own like models. A good example is, say, the company Vidu. They had a pretty good model. I don't know. Well, also like a year ago, 6 months ago.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
They have absolutely nothing now. There's Pika, an American company. They were also like 6 months to a year ago. Very good. They were the first to launch. They launched their own social network that like would be only generated videos. They did that before Sora 2 did. But now Pika also hasn't had an update in forever.
So let's say, right, a business comes to me and says, I want to integrate AI. Where to start? Well, what's the first step? Tell them, think about it. Or what do you usually say?
That's a real case. They come and say, we want AI. What exactly? For what? Like, you need to figure out with them what exactly they want. And at the same time, basically, I'm just honestly tired. Just these endless discussions. I say, we have like, it's a paid discovery service. Basically, we sit down with you. I send a person to you. He goes to you, like, I don't know, to the facilities, walks around some factories, studies the processes basically. And like, we'll give you the result of this discovery will be that we'll give you like in these areas you can implement AI. That's how we see it. That's the service we provide.
How do you check then that the contractor is actually building AI and not just wrapping GPT in a pretty interface?
Well, in a sense, we're all wrapping GPT. Nobody is training their own LLMs. It's bad if you suddenly find that out. Well, there, again, it depends on the case.
You've revealed the secret to us.
Yeah, no, essentially everyone like who works at the integrator level, they like make, well, wrappers like for GPT, for Claude, and so on.
And add-ons, I guess.
Yes, but for many, that might be quite enough. Even now, like right now, basically, there are new tools. Have you heard of Cloud Code and the OpenAI equivalent? It's called Codex.
Yeah.
Great tools. You can basically just, well, build everything around them. Zero problems. Teach people how to use them. Maybe you don't even need like a super custom solution.
Because people think, well, then you look the client in the eye and it's awkward.
Yeah, totally awkward.
Well, anyway, the main thing is the job's done.
It works. That's the point.
And it saved money.
Right.
Because if you develop an LLM yourself, the actual model, all that stuff, it'll take longer, first of all. Second, it's more expensive.
Actually, I even have an article about this on my website. Like how to implement it. And one of the points is that you need success criteria, you need to come up with metrics for how you'll measure it, and you need success criteria. That if this metric reaches a certain level after implementing AI, then it's a success. And, well, it almost doesn't matter how you achieved it. I'm not going to, like, describe all the different technical solutions right now.
But read it. Read it on the website. What's the most important thing, then, that you'd advise a business that's thinking about AI right now wants it to? Like, suppose they listened to us and said, we want it too.
What's bothering you the most right now, right? Where there's a lot of manual work. Okay, not manual in the sense that, like...
Making a wheel, right? Yeah. Working with a pickaxe.
There's a lot of office work, a lot of managers. They're constantly missing deadlines, forgetting to do things. They have so many files, blah, blah, blah. Processes like those, they can most likely be automated. You need to think about how, what actions. Hey, I can literally like click a mouse on a computer now. Those things can be done.
In several recent episodes of our podcast with our other guests, I've mentioned an example several times from recent years, even maybe this year. Let's see, fresh news that in the United States, they let an AI manage a store and gave it a budget.
Mm-hmm.
So the question arises, what's your opinion on such an idea? How much of an idea is it, really? And second, would you trust AI with money, say in any other, idea? Or is it too soon?
Basically, I really dig these experiments. There were several of them. First, they trusted like a vending machine, a food dispenser, right?
Yeah.
With chocolate bars. The latest one was something like a supermarket, I think.
Yeah.
I think at first it was like online, then they gave it an actual offline location.
It actually hired employees.
Yeah, awesome experiments. I think they're almost all unprofitable.
Yeah. A guy was trading stocks. So he trusted, I think, $7,000 or maybe $10,000 to a robot he wrote, connected it to AI, gave it access to his crypto wallet, and said, go for it. He got scammed. So at first, everything was fine. He withdrew a little bit, but then scammers got in touch with him somehow, saying this and that. And he says, yeah, let's do it, guys. And he sent it to him. And that's it. And they lost all the money, huge amounts of money. So that was another thing that happened in America.
I can say a few things about that. Would I trust it with my money? To some extent, I already do. I actually trust it with, like a lot of things, even, like access to my email and stuff like that. But I keep an eye on it, yeah. So I trust it for the duration of a task, and I watch what's going on. Although sometimes I've given it bites for like 8 hours and only checked in the morning to see what it did. But not like it's like trading stocks or something like that. Basically, I'm saying I'd like to run an experiment with some little shop or something, but I'm not ready to just put my own money. It's more like a joke, like a marketing experiment. Well, like I hope that I'll get some exposure for myself through that. I'm not ready yet, so I'm looking for a sponsor. Now about stocks. This specific case, I don't know what happened with the scammers, but I'll say in general, using AI for stock trading is a lousy idea. Modern AIs, LLMs, right, like ChatGPT, they're designed to work with text. Yes, we've turned them into agents that have access. They'll Google stuff, but their decisions are still at the text level. They don't work. They're extremely bad with numbers. If you ask an LLM, specifically an LLM, without calling an external calculator to multiply two large numbers, it'll start making mistakes.
Well, that's not a trading bot. We're talking specifically about stocks. But what if it's a trading bot that's specifically trained on historical data?
Exactly. That's different.
Different story.
Yeah, and like, the sharks will eat you alive here, right? Like, of course.
Well, I mean, there's always that, and you can't just rely on history. You have to keep training it on new data. Yeah. So those are completely different things. And yet, it's interesting, you have to admit.
There's a specific startup called Allbridge. I just know because they initially reached out to me I helped them with a small demo. But their idea was cool. They listen to a bunch of podcasts where experts analyze different companies and they extract like sentiment from them. Like he said something good about them on this date, right? And then it factors that into the future forecast on top of basically everything else. And like they call themselves Aldbridge, like alternative data. Well, like that's another way to get them in. They've actually, I think, pivoted 10 times since then, but now they're in the valley, basically. They told me they'd already received a buyout offer. They turned it down for some reason, but the valuation's good. The guys are basically doing well. But that's a cool use for an LLM. So it's bad for crunching numbers, but like understanding what people are talking about is great, right? Just like people, like we're talking on the podcast now, they discussed a company like Tesla on a podcast and said that Tesla's crap, right? But like, neither of them has like an investment background. So listening to them, But when a professional analyst listens and says it's like crap, then maybe you should. But then you analyze it and find out they're affiliated, right? So you shouldn't really listen to them either. Or you keep like a history. I actually did something similar for crypto. During the crypto craze on YouTube, everyone was like, oh, buy this, buy that. It's going to hype. It'll explode to the moon and all that. But you look at like the history, what he said about this project on that date, and like a month later, the project tanked and everyone got scammed. Well, then he's not really worth trusting. And that's the case here.
AI has become a word that means everything and nothing at the same time. Behind this word is an engineering task with specific data, architecture, and constraints. And the people who solve it are usually not the ones talking about it the loudest. Azamat, thank you for the conversation, for being able to explain and convey such huge, important topics that certainly stir our minds.
Thank you. I hope it was interesting.
This was Mikhail Svetly. This was the xChief Central Asia podcast. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and all podcast platforms. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new episodes.